So now I would like to introduce our expert for the evening. Very interesting topic, that is not sports management, but architecting how sports management courses, curriculum should look like, and also what is the global perspective of it. We have an expert, Indian, and why this is very important, that Professor Dr. Ravi Ranjan understands Indian ecosystem. He has done his PhD from IIM Bangalore, and then later moved to Morocco, established a management school from scratch. And when he got to know about that India is building upon this international Olympic ecosystem, and there is a conference, he directly approached to the embassy, and he was keen to come here and help India in order to build something which is beyond ages, which is beyond conception, which has the global impression as well. So coming from India, knowing the globe, I would like to request Professor Dr. Ravi Ranjan to please come on stage and share your insight on the topic. Hello, hello. So thank you, Dr. Utsav. I express my gratitude to Professor Patel and our ambassador, Indian ambassador in Morocco, for this invitation. I'm honored to be here. A special thanks to our liaison officers who have supported me immensely over the last couple of days. So I share a journey which was never planned. I call it serendipity. And last 6 years, I have been doing something in Rabat and Casablanca. Part of setting up a business school in Africa, in Morocco. And I heard some thoughts from Professor Yanis, how difficult is it to operate in Africa? When you talk about Senegal, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, it's not so easy. So I shared some evidences in management education. I have expertise in analytics and AI and on the interface of risk management, but today we'll focus more on how do we go about creating talent capabilities in a resource-constrained ecosystem. Here we are in the map. Here I am, the red dot in Casablanca. When I talk about Morocco, when I go to my native town and talk to people, not many people know about it except for the movie Casablanca, right? So I have to explain each time it's a country very close to Spain, and we have a little bit of a Strait of Gibraltar in between. You can take a ferry and go from Tangier to Spain. So, and they asked me, what do you do in Casablanca? So I said, I'm helping them build a school. Oh, build a school? Do you mean this picture in the front? And they believe that, yeah, oh, I'm building a school, maybe architecting pillars. So when I went there, 6 years back, it was a barren land. We just had a mandate to be part of a school on a temporary campus. We started. Today, it's a full-fledged big campus. We have more than 20 plus program, 2,000 students, collaboration over 15 countries. And I shared this journey from inception. I was one of the first 3 professors to join there. But what I actually do there, I do research, I teach, build programs, teach talent, I do advisory. This is a screenshot of a project with one of the leading airlines in the country, Royal Air Maroc, where they hired us to predict their traffic demand, how many people book flights every week, and share perspectives. Now you would ask me, so what? What's the big deal here? Right? I mean, this is a typical professor's job in any university or any business school. Right? So the big deal is here. When I went there, because I come from India, I'm good at English and Hindi by design. So when I go there, I saw the languages operating are French, Arabic, Spanish, and Darija. Darija is a language which blends everything. It has English, Spanish, it has other nuances of local culture, and people speak Darija. So I cannot interact with anybody. New climate, north of Morocco, very closer to Spanish climate, very good weather. The moment you go south, you hit Sahara Desert, right? 57 degrees Celsius. Right? People still stay in the closed regions nearby. Very new bureaucratic system. Every process, everything takes time. Just to give an example, we need to obtain a residency card to live there, and that took 1 year, 4 months. Before this, I went to Netherlands. It was 1 day. So the kind of time gap, low level of competitiveness. In India, we compete. We compete for sports. We compete to go to IITs. We compete to go to schools. Even kids have to compete. You get birth and you to get admission in kindergarten. You have to compete. But we don't see this competitiveness there. People are relaxed. They don't care. I mean, so what? We need to learn. Okay, we will learn. I mean, next time. There are not too much of resources. It's not easy to secure funds. There is geopolitical influence. I mean, although many countries have become independent, but there are still notions, beliefs, especially from the economic side, which still exists, and you feel that when you want to design a policy. There are no formalized process of support. Support exists on paper, but when you want to go there, it does not really help or work, or it takes too much of time. Nascent expat support. For example, if you want to go to US or Europe, there are established process on how to hire a foreign person. But when I go there, people don't know, right? So they have a law. If you hire anybody from outside Morocco, you need to prove to the government that you could not find anybody as competent as this person, and that's the reason why you are hiring the person. So they took 8 months to do that. They hired, gave me the contract, they signed the contract, I start working, but they have to prove that before they can give me the formalized official contract. And in general, by design, because of systemic problem, there is missing competence, and there is a lot of ownership because people are not very competent. The moment something is created, people rush to take it. So that's the reason the journey that I'm sharing becomes very interesting. How to architect this in this setting. So now I see a glimpse of what is possible, what has been possible in last 6 years. I was involved in building and scaling programs from scratch. Scratch, I mean zero. You build this program, you launch it. We did multiple cohorts. Now this is the sixth cohort running. I did for first three cohorts until I went on to do other things and passed it over to someone else. Architecture curricula, I don't know how many courses, I don't recall. We stitched global partnership, so we received mentorship from Columbia Business School to start with, and we had several partners in Europe, including HEC Paris, IMD, including some collaborations in India, in School of Business, in Montreal. So we were able to do that in a short span of time. We were able to create executive programs for leading companies like OCP Group. So OCP Group happens to be the parent funding organization for the school. For companies like Deloitte and MasterCard, research excellence. Personally, when I went there, I looked at the research ecosystem, and mostly people tend to publish in a low tier journals. Why? Because there is not enough capabilities and training, and there is not enough data to do research. Then to produce a top tier research from there becomes extremely challenging. And we were able to do that. We got some top A+ publication and some Ivy case studies and Harvard Business Review case studies. When you join a business school as an entry-level professor, you don't get students to work. I got 6 students to work because there were nobody to really supervise, right? Out of 6, 1 has graduated, 2 are close to graduation, and 3 is under the progress. The first student to graduate went to become a Fulbright scholar at Columbia Business School, and now he has joined last month as a faculty member in University College London. The other 2 are also another one is Fulbright scholar, the other one is a Swiss Excellence Fellow in University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. We were able to collaborate and deliver strategic project financing project. We are talking about $1 billion projects plus here, because Morocco wants to invest in green energy, and to invest in green energy we need large infrastructure development, especially around green hydrogen and so on. And these initiatives does not happen in 1 year or 2 years. It's a 10-year plan or 20-year plan. So all these investments needs big project financing, and we were working on that. Personally, I was also interested in solving the data problem in Africa, and I created a venture which also raised seed funds, and we are working on that. Also involved in mentoring a series of startups. At the end, startups solves problems and create jobs, and we need that in any ecosystem that we are building. Did and steered more than 10 governance committees to solve the compliance challenges that we have in the ecosystem. Now, to achieve this in a matter of 5.5 years, it's not easy, right? And I share 4 stories from this, mostly on the leadership lessons, which is going to help us solve the problem that we are discussing today within sports management and Olympics. So, story 1. Leadership with empathy and emotional intelligence. Before that, I want to ask you all a simple question, and I want answers. I know after lunch it's not easy to engage. Please answer this question. What's the cost of the ball? 30 seconds. So let me repeat the question. A bat and a ball cost $1.10. The ball costs $1 more than the bat. How much does the ball cost? I asked this question two days before to one of the students, but I want to listen that. $30 seconds. Yes. 10 cents. More answers? $1. More answers? 105. 105. So 2 answers. So only one of them will be correct, right? So $1 is an incorrect answer. And I tell you, I repeat this experiment in many classes with many executives chief executives, and so on. 80% of the time I get incorrect answer. And I attribute this to one of our famous psychologists of our age, Daniel Kahneman, who proposed this theory. And the answer is, why this happens is here. So our brain has two kinds of systems, a system 1 and system 2. System 1 is quick and instinctive. It wants to give an answer right away. It's emotional. It does not want to put any efforts. It jumps to conclusions within seconds. And because this happens, we commit fundamental errors in our decisions without us even realizing. While we also have a system 2 in our brain, which is complex, which takes complex decisions, is conscious, it is more effortful, and it is more logical. So while the question I asked is very simple, a 6-year-old kid should be able to solve, right? But when you ask this, more often than not, we end up getting wrong answer. This is because the question is framed in a way that we don't think, and we just jump to the answer, right? But why does this matter? Most of the time, we are taking a high-stake decisions, especially if you are a director, if you are a manager, senior manager, and any decisions will have short-term or long-term financial impact, reputational impact, other impacts on the organization. So our mind uses system 1 to make irrational decisions. And what's the impact? So here is the whole process. All of us are cognitively bounded. We have very limited information on which we act. And we always have a time constraint, and within that time constraint, we have to deliver. The moment this happens, we become bounded rational. We are rational. We are logical people. But because of these constraints, our rationality has a very limited boundary. And the moment this happens, we do something called satisficing. Satisficing means doing the bare minimum required to complete the job. Now, if we do the bare minimum required to play a sport, we cannot win at Olympics. So bare minimum is not enough. We have to go beyond bare minimum and try to see things in a much more holistic way. So there was a research done which says, are empathetic CEOs more effective? Now, by empathy, I mean you look at somebody's situation, their feeling, their constraint, and take that into account in the decision making, right? And this research says, during the times of crisis, like we had COVID-19, like we have suddenly a performance of a firm dropping down due to an external factor, not under control, like a war situation. So when we have a crisis and a time bound, your level of empathy should be higher. So when I went to Casablanca, I had no idea about this. But certain situations appeared, and I had to figure out, how to solve this. Because there's no template or a solution that works. Before that, I put this slide as a reminder of epsilon is the small knowledge or the understanding that we actually have. Omega is the complete information space. So we always know only a little, and we miss out big piece of information in our decision making. So let's see how my understanding lead to something tangible for management education. So I was saying normally my observations I saw on the ground to one of my former colleagues who is at Purdue in the United States. And she said, there is a case study to be written. What you are discovering is a sort of empathetic leadership. And this leadership is much more crucial when you are in a resource-constrained environment and the challenges that I spoke about. So I said, that's great, but how do we do it? So we found somebody in Kenya, Radha Karna. She's of Indian origin, but she's a doctor, and she was based in UK for a long time before moving to Kenya. And she set up this company called HealthX Africa, which is a company within telehealth. So what they try to do when COVID started, they try to give medicine consultancy through virtually on Teams connected through phones, WhatsApp, and so on. So this was a startup. This was much needed because people needed to maintain distance. And when we talked to her, she echoed exactly same thoughts what I was trying to describe to her when I started working there. So we take her experiences and we wrote a case study on empathetic leadership as an asset in telehealth. So we wrote this case study, we submitted to WDI. WDI is a publishing house of University of Michigan. No expectation, but somehow this case study emerged as among top 3 in the global case study competition, because this seems very intuitive, but it's difficult to implement in practice. Second example and second story. It's about embracing reality and change. So how many of you use ChatGPT? Only half of the class, half of the audience is raising hand. No? It should be full. How many of you use ChatGPT 5.2? Only one. So there is a big gap. Gemini 3.1. Very few. So we are not yet prepared for the change the tsunami that AI is bringing. Right? So we should be, I'm telling you, we should be embracing that. So let me tell you the second story. So the first student who joined me, he was working on AI innovation, but implications in healthcare. And what we are discussing here will have great implications for sports management as well, because healthcare is directly linked to sports and well-being. So to run any AI model, we need data. Without data, we cannot run AI model. And there were plenty of startups emerging in AI every day. I mean, the new startup is being created. But none of them are really getting successful. And we figured out why this is happening. So my student goes to New York City and he starts interviewing startups. We needed directly to connect with the CEOs of the startups. So we wrote to 800 CEOs. We got almost 110 responses. Out of those 110, we spoke to 80 CEOs. And we listened to them, what works and what does not. And this case study that published with IB is just an outcome of that, where we take 2 startups out of them and explain their journey on data acquisition strategies for AI. Without data, I mean, there is no decision and there is no model. So one of the key insights which appeared here is we need to form alliances. We need to form right partnership in the ecosystem to collect data. Without partnership, I mean, there is nobody is going to share the data. And if we try to buy data sets, it's technically not possible. Nobody has enough funds to do that. Moving to story 3. It's never about the outcome of a journey. It's about the process of the journey. And we should be able to architect a process. Again, coming from research, let me give you a real example. Now, everybody talks about AI. Professor Marcus talked about AI in sports some time back. So, a real example, Amazon, right? So Amazon, they did something phenomenal. They said, okay, we will do hiring using AI. And how to hire using AI? You automate the entire process of hiring. You put it on, so they will create an agentic AI which automates everything. They will take the resumes from a portal. They will filter resumes based on the predefined criteria. They will figure out certain candidates to interview. AI will interview, and then they will finally make an offer. And they implemented that. What happened was amazing. And they were recruiting for software developers. The AI algorithm only hired male software developer, no females. Why this happened? Because historically, there are mostly male software developers. So, the lesson here is AI is biased. Humans are biased. Why explain? Now, AI is biased. And if we just integrate AI without knowing the biases of AI, it will not work. So, what we did, we developed a 5-step framework using a method called scenario planning. You need to characterize a scenario. You need to work out each event possible and then characterize all the possible risks. Once we do that, we need to cluster them in some form to see what is more riskier, what is less riskier. And then from that, pick up one and then start iterate, assess, evaluate the scenarios and restart the cycle if required. If we are not doing the basic steps, this is a process. If we do the process correctly, the outcome will be taken care of. If we have not done the process correctly, we will be short of the main outcome, and then we don't know who is accountable if something goes wrong. This leads to the last story. Fail fast and adapt. What do I mean by this? When I interact with generations coming out in the job market, I see three kinds of people. Number one, most people are job seekers. When you are a job seeker, what happens is you just do a bare minimum to achieve a job. And that is not enough. So you need to be switching to something called iterative learners. When you are an iterative learner, you do a little bit more. You know this change has come, my skill needs to be updated. So I will learn this new skill, I will do this AI course, I will go to this conference, I will attend this, so that I will be much more prepared in the job market. They are in the middle. They are relevant, but they are still at the average. The third category of people are problem solvers. When you take up a problem and solve it, and see if somebody is willing to pay for the solution, you create relevance for yourself, and you're always relevant. Right? This applies to individual level, to organizational level, to ecosystem level. Right? The moment you start solving problems, you fail. But you have to fail fast. The best thing about failing fast is you know what does not work. And the moment you know what does not work, gives you extra bit of edge in trying out new things. Again, a real example, we launched a certificate program, and when we launched it, we are talking about education for sports, so when we launched it, for a one-day program, we were expecting 20 participants, and we had 151 registrations. So we were all happy. It's done. So we launched first cohort, excellent. 2 days before, we come to know the management of those people who registered did not approve their participation. So our participation dropped to 0 2 days before, and we are all prepared, all instructors invited. And why they did not approve? Because the program we launched was 12 days, and they could only approve their executives to go for 5-day program. So suddenly, what seemed we were celebrating like a success, suddenly it turned out to be a failure within no time. So I said, no problem. We adapt. We fail. We adapt fast. So we split the certificate into 2 parts: 5-day 1 beginner and the 5-day 2 advanced. And they were in 1 month later. So it was a problem, but we adapted and it worked. Right? Nothing changed. So adapting is crucial. Now, if we try to summarize, what do we learn here? Roughly 4 things. Number one, we need to do a cognitive transition. We need to shift to a growth mindset route. We need to be risk taker. We don't need to be using system one thinking. System one thinking is just relying your guts and intuition. Rather become data driven. The second lesson here is cultivating empathetic leadership. When you are going to identify a talent at young age, maybe we are biased by traditional methods of selection and we don't look at the holistic pictures, or maybe there is a hidden factor which determines the talent that we don't know and we completely overlook at that. So by interacting more with athletes at different levels, we get to know their challenges and only then we can customize the solutions that they need. Third one is scenario planning. When we talk about ecosystem building, when we have the problems is not just one layer, but it stands at multiple layers, we need to do possible scenarios. What will work and what will not work. If it will work, what are the risks? And we strike off what not to do. That is crucial. So this means if we do that, we will have a short action plan which is implementable and feasible. Finally, we talk about action learning. Learning does not happen through just books. I mean, the stories I'm sharing, all this happened for real and real life. We did live with, I mean, whether in the program with the students or with the company, we live with the journey to understand and explain. So, based on these principles, at Africa Business School, we have developed a learner-centric system, which completely applies in this context. What is a learner-centric system? We are seamlessly integrating research that we do and action learning. So learning is not taking a textbook and teaching the students. We're always integrating real problems. The second principle is principle of shared vision. So when you talk to an athlete, or when you talk to parents of an athlete, or when you talk to a teacher of an athlete, if you create a shared vision on why do they want to play and understand each other, they tend to perform better. If the shared vision and understanding is missing, this leads to a communication gap and things does not work. Finally, in terms of designing such learning programs within any of the management education paradigm, what we need is introducing modularity. What is modularity? Think of it as a library. In library, when you go to the library, you have thousands of books lying there. You don't read all the books. In the same way, not any learner need all the courses. Not any athlete need all the training. They need specific training. So when you introduce modularity in the learning system, this means a learner can pick and choose what they need to learn, which is currently really not in the picture, right? So introducing modularity brings flexibility and agility to the learner. So when we talk about pedagogical excellence, we should be focusing on developing holistic skills, not one skill. You don't know what skills comes out. And one of the sport person, MS Dhoni, inspires me a lot. Just looking at his calmness when I teach all of this, and I can relate to what he does on the ground. He stays calm no matter what. And because of his calmness, he's able to take calls, which normally is difficult. And finally, we should be always ready to use the new tools which are emerging. For example, with the advent of AI, perhaps there will be a better efficiency in what we should do, what we should be able to do. So we should be integrating as much as possible. Now, how does all these learning translate to athlete-centric management? Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the pointers I link from what the stories that I've shared. We should take an action learning approach. We should maximize on-field learning as much as possible. You know, if you are teaching a course, bring an athlete to the class. Ask them to sit in the class and critique them. System 2 leadership, again, not relying on guts and intuition, rather on data, information, actual data of athletes, and so on. Talent identification should be not just by looking at one cricketing shot or one goal or so on. It should be a proper measurement framework implemented through data. We should be focusing on linked with the second one, focusing on emotional intelligence and combine that to detect or to create high performance training. And to ensure this is correct, so since morning I've been hearing from Dr. Utsav about the India's way of doing things. We should be going to even much more localized way of doing things. What works in a small district in Bihar might not work in a district in Kerala because there are cultural nuances which are different. So we should be able to customize to those cases, and we should be using innovative tools as much as possible. So if I combine all of these things, this is not a blueprint, but this gives a way on how do we structure that. I think from an ecosystem standpoint of view, we need to work on three layers. The first foundational layer. The foundational layer should be targeted to local sports market cases. We don't have a vibrant sports market. It should not be just created at a national level. For example, within cricket, because IPL came, there is a market. People, even if players are not selected in the national team, they still have options available to do something. So, like this, there should be a local sports market creation. Currently, organizations have no financial literacy on how to manage different revenue streams, right? So they need a training on that. And finally, again, integrating the empathetic leadership. The more we go to a bridge level, where we need to be operationally efficient and we need to cultivate operational excellence, and there we should take a complete scientific way of talent identification, which is there. I mean, we are there, but I mean, if you look at other countries, advanced countries, why certain countries have higher number of medals, certain countries don't. I mean, the process does not start one day before. Maybe the process starts 15 years before of talent identification and nurturing. Then, when we go about more from an executive standpoint, it should focus on strategic leadership more from, I mean, how do we, and we are talking about it, we are talking about bringing Olympics to India, we are already talking about that, and we should be strategic about how do we go about building the entire support system, which will, when we host, we should not end up, just bagging few medals. When we host, we are fully prepared as an ecosystem to be right at one of the top contenders on the chart. So I think that's enough from my side. I look forward to hearing insights, thoughts, critiques, ideas from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, platform is open for audience. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Hi, I have a mic already. I'll go ahead and ask. Love the presentation. I love how um, planning and strategy, as well as it being communicated with design theory, has been finally presented today. And I myself am a design student, so I've been very focused on understanding design and that being a way of life. So I completely resonate with everything that you said. And even though when it comes to the Indian context of design, India has always been forward on terms of solving for masses rather than classes, especially with the audience size that we have. I wanted to know what would be your thoughts in terms of, I know that you said uh, it's supposed to be more data driven rather than it being instinctive. There is still media literacy also is a very big challenge in our country. If you've seen a news channel on a daily basis, you know what goes on. And that brings me to ask you, how do we sort of tackle that? Building that bridge between the masses to understand the importance of data and letting them know that this is also a possibility rather than it being something that is always based on instinct.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. What we call an answer to your question. What we call this is the strategy at scale. Let me give you an example. So when you look at mark sheet of a class 10 or class 12 student in India, how often you see score in football 95 out of 100, score in badminton.
Never, never.
So we never train people on the ground.
Absolutely.
And they just prepare in the very limited time, and then we are expecting them to go at the Olympics and win it. So we are never really creating the process, right?
That's the biggest challenge that we have today. Like the generalization of education is such that the modularity aspect of it, like Western education has me having options to choose what I want to learn. I was just speaking with her on the break, telling her that as a kid in the Western education system, I can plan to be a professional footballer from a very young age and then have the advantages of landing into an Ivy based on my football scholarship. But that's not really possible here to, let's say, I'm a football player today, but I want to go to IIM and I want to do sports management. Do I get my intake based on my football knowledge and my understanding of the sports and then get into where I am? Not really.
So that's the reason why I emphasize so much on empathetic route. So I mean, until we understand the interest of athletes, I mean us, we cannot curate a path for them. If even if they want to become a professional chef, they should be able to do that, and it has its own career options, right? So curating this path right in the beginning and then allowing them to achieve. I mean, it's not too much of a change. It's a mindset change, a thinking change, right? The moment we start allowing them to accept that this change is normal, right? Which is why I have so much of thinking. So then we will start creating this new wave, which is starting to happen. I would not say we are at zero, which is starting to happen, but this we need to build the momentum.
Hello, sir. It was nice presentation and covering all the tactics or all the challenges the person face in their every walk of the life. And although it is applicable in all the sectors, but my question is that how you can cover a little bit about the VUCA challenges, how to solve them, and if you can set some examples in the sports sector, if you can, so, or in general. Thank you. How to deal with the VUCA challenges.
So I don't know if the class understands VOCA, so let me explain. These are four acronyms.
In the layman language, so
Yeah.
that everybody can
Yeah,
understand.
it's
And this is
acronym.
not only limited to professional life, it's also useful in personal life. That's how it is.
So VUCA stands for four words. I mean, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. These words seem to be very similar, and they look like they have same meaning English-wise, but they have a little bit of different meaning. So we are always uncertain about something. We don't know. I mean, right now we know for sure next session is the panel discussion, but many times we don't know what's really going to happen in next one day, 1 week, or a few years in advance. So when we don't know something about one thing, one variable, one outcome, then that's uncertainty. But sometimes there is a variance. For example, we know that the price of a stock next day is going to change. But this change can be very much, can be a small change or a large change. So if this change is fluctuating, that is volatility, right? So a system with uncertainty and volatility is already difficult to manage because you know it is going to change and you know this change can be good or bad in both directions and the magnitude can be high. Complexity comes when we are not handling one variable, one uncertainty, but rather more multiple uncertainty which are interconnected, right? So, for example, how to identify an athlete? It does not depend on one factor. It depends on many factors, from physical health to emotional well-being to family factors to society factors to infrastructure factors, and they are interconnected, right? So it becomes a complexity problem. Ambiguity is when you don't know anything, no? And then to make a right call in this VUCA environment, you only need to rely on the information that you have up till that point and see what is best possible, right? If we make a gut feeling, I gave you a question, which most of the time people are unable to answer. And this question, the complexity is way more complex than the simple math question that I have. Yes.
Hello sir, myself Kumar Imesh from Rashtraksha University, Lucknow campus. My question is that you stated three type of jobs people: job seekers, problem solvers, and adapters. So, in which category we can put players on basis of their economic status with their sports? For example, there is a huge difference of earnings and economic status between a cricket player in India and a track and field athlete.
So I will give you economics answer to this first.
Yeah.
So, how many Olympic slots or I mean sports jobs are available? Very limited.
Yes, sir.
How many job seekers are there? Very high.
Yes.
This means we know from the beginning, most of the people, maybe 97% of the people, will not have jobs.
Yes.
So this means we need another solution. The first solution is not going to work. We know by design. No, in probability theory, when we say if something has a non-zero probability, this means it will happen at some point in time, right? So we need to move to a second case, a more of a problem-solving route, where we need to create small ventures who would take up small problems within the sport ecosystem and they try to solve it. So even this, for example, I was discussing with Cedric yesterday. He said professionalization of certain options. For example, if you're an average athlete and you want to become a journalist, you would be a better journalist than a person who has no sports background. Well, at least you understand the nuance of sports.
Yes.
So we could have a cross verticals of professions, and we need to create that in the ecosystem, which will not only solve problems but create jobs, and we can have more supply of jobs.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Good evening, sir. My name is Prof. I'm from Gujarat, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, JIPCL. So I have one point to share. Like, based on infrastructure, and based on the topic infrastructure, I just wanted to share that is there any possibility to like make any infrastructure or sports indoor hall or something like that for the remote areas where like people are unaware about these things. So is there any possibility to like make an infrastructure like for the people who are like very far, very like unreachable, but very talented and very strong and very and like yeah, that's one.
So you mentioned two words, awareness and infrastructure.
Yes.
So I might not, from awareness, I can speak. For the infrastructure, I'm not the best person, but I'll still try to give an overview. So for the awareness, it's not difficult in the current digital era because we are so digitally connected. I mean, we are connected to the extent that Google knows that we are together. Our Google Maps location must be trusted and they're centered. So because we are digitally connected, launching an awareness campaign through social media, through apps, through television, through Instagram, is very much possible. Infrastructure is not a one-day process. It's a long-term commitment, and it has to come from a policy point of view because it requires funding, planning, and the extent of reach that we want to have. Right? So I mean, this is a strategic decision that has to come from the top, and then we build ecosystem around that. Will it be important? Absolutely. This is one of the most important pillar in the entire ecosystem development.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, sir, for the wonderful session.
Thank you so much.